Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 9, Episode 119. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for tuning in this Friday, Steelers Edition. Dave, OTAs wrapping up, mandatory minicamp about to start, and then we're going to hit probably the biggest lull of the NFL season from June to July, but we'll have training camp coming up. I think they're going to announce the schedule in, less than a week, so, things are getting close.
Yeah, happy donut day to you, evidently.
Oh, is it? Oh, is it, Dave? What's your favorite donut? What's your go-to?
Glazed, I think. Krispy Kreme. I grew up in the South, so Dunkin', they have Dunkin' and had Dunkin' Donuts there, but they're just not as popular there as Krispy Kremes are. But I've gotten to the age now where I can only eat 2 or 3 Krispy Kremes because the oil and those things really get to your stomach there. It seems like it's every other month is National Donut Month or day. Yeah. It seems like, according to the Twitter machine and all. But yeah. Look, here we are. OTAs are now over with here. Mandatory minicamp next week. We're right in maximum hyperbole season, I guess, if you will. And to me, overall, I don't mind it. I got to admit, this last week with some of they had media day with players getting pictures in their uniforms, and then a big push of interviews that seemed to close out the week on like Wednesday and Thursday, and of course most of this all is positive, and it's the kind of stuff that you would expect, but it doesn't hurt my feelings any. I'm definitely getting excited for the season being right around the corner. As you said, after the 3 days of minicamp practice next week, we got that 5-week lull there, but it is what I put on the Twitter machine. Is it 9 weeks from today that their first preseason game is? So all this is going to start moving fairly quick here as soon as we can get through the 5-week lull between mandatory minicamp and the start of training camp.
And to reiterate, the training camp schedule will be released, June 12th? What's the date on that?
Next Wednesday, whatever date that is.
Yeah, 10 a.m.?
I think that's what they said.
Okay. So we'll have that schedule released a little bit later than usual. But, they'll have between 15 and 18 practices. And maybe we'll see if they have a joint practice. They didn't have a joint practice last year, and those were always really fun. So we'll see how the setup is.
Speaking of being behind, no Hard Knocks team announced yet. I know to some that's probably not that big a deal, but it's definitely part of the offseason and preseason there that I really look forward to, and they've yet to do that as of yet. And keep your fingers crossed that it's going to be the Raiders. I think odds are that it's either going to be the Redskins, the Raiders, or the Detroit Lions at this point. And as I just stated, I just checked out my tweet from early this morning. 9 weeks from today, the Steelers will kick off their preseason against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
There you go. So, can't wait for that one. But let's jump into OTAs, what's happening in Pittsburgh land. And again, nothing too notable, which again, for me is always good news. No news is good news. But Mason Rudolph, getting more work this offseason, obviously second-year guy, Ben getting rest, doesn't need the OTAs as much as, Josh Dobbs and Mason Rudolph does. So a really good opportunity for Rudolph to take what he's learned from year one and apply it to try to make the jump in year two.
Yeah, what a difference a year makes. This time last year, he was behind, of course, Roethlisberger, Landry Jones, and Joshua Dobbs. I can only imagine he didn't get, if any, many first-team reps a year ago there, and probably not many overall quality reps as a whole. And then, you fast forward, obviously, into training camp and all, and then into the preseason where kind of mixed results there, I think, during the preseason. We saw a few good things, and obviously a few bad things there with the pick six against, I think it was the Packers there. So and we've talked about it quite a bit so far since the season ended, last year's season ended, and that's the fact that This is a guy you expect to take a huge leap forward this year, and eventually come away with the number 2 spot. Now, will that be right out of training camp, or will it be quarter into the season, or the team has a little bit earlier bye week this year? Maybe that's the time that he jumps Dobbs. But at some point, you certainly would expect that to happen. Of course, he talked yesterday about getting those first team reps. He says, yeah, he's getting a lot more. Randy Fichtner feels more comfortable with him and his knowledge that he's going to go in there and run the play and execute, and he thinks that's just what happens in year 2. So it's been great for him. He goes on to say, he's enjoyed his time with the first team offensive line. He feels that he's done a better job of eliminating the mistakes inside the red zone situations there. And, he's staying in the playbook, and during the offseason worked on throwing, worked a little bit on little things like footwork and timing. He even mentioned that he got to work out some with some Steelers players. And this, of course, was before he found out that Darius Hayward-Bay was going to not be brought back. He got to work out a little bit with him, and he also said he got to work out some with Jalen Samuels, because the two of them are from the Charlotte, North Carolina area there. So far, so good with him. Obviously, Joshua Dobbs, continues to get his work, I'm assuming, with the first, second, and maybe even third team as well there. So this is all setting up for a very nice training camp battle once this team hits Latrobe.
Yeah, and I think I was also with Tom House, I believe, the quarterback guru that he spent some time with in the offseason, who's trained a ton of quarterbacks, guys come out of the draft, obviously because you can't work with coaches during the offseason. But, the thing with Rudolph is, he didn't get a lot of quality reps at all once the season started last year, but he did get a ton of reps in the preseason and training camp. I'm looking at the numbers from last year. He led the 4 quarterbacks in pass attempts with 170 of them. So, he got a lot of reps in camp. Obviously, things died down once the season kicked up, but I think certainly there's a lot to take away from year 1 and a lot of mistakes and teaching tape for him into year 2. But as we talked about before, it's going to be earned, not given. But every expectation is for him to win that number 2 job.
Absolutely, and like I said, if there's one player that a lot of people should be very interested or excited about seeing this year in training camp and followed, of course, by preseason, it's definitely going to be him. I would think that he's going to start a game, and Joshua Dobbs will start a game during the preseason, and then you'll probably see both of them maybe get an opportunity to come out maybe at some point during the second half and open things up to see how they come off the bench, so to speak, as well. But definitely one of the many battles we'll be looking forward to this summer.
To switch to some of the guys Mason Rudolph will be throwing to this summer, James Washington, Deante Johnson. I think Johnson, and we mentioned this, I believe, the other day, but Johnson, I believe, reiterated it, talking about how that game's slowing down, getting a little bit of work with the first team. I think Ben's, had some conversations with Ben, and Ben was trying to challenge him and doing some of the things that Ben typically does. James Washington, again, just kind of talking about his offseason progression, and a lot of compliments coming James Washington away from teammates. Everyone's talking about how much better he looks, how much lighter he is, and just, his ability to win vertical and win kind of jump ball situations. So 2 guys that are obviously be under the microscope pretty heavily come Latrobe.
Yeah, you don't know how much hyperbole is involved in that, obviously.
Yeah, some of it, definitely some involved.
But it seems like, and that's dangerous. It seems like Deante Johnson is taking the expected path. You would think. At least he's on the field. Of course, he missed some time during the rookie minicamp. I don't know, was it a hamstring? I don't know if we know for sure what it was.
I don't know what it was.
But he is back on the field, and he did mention that he's got some very, very limited time with Ben, and Ben is testing him as well, and kind of having some one-on-one conversations with him along the way. All that said, I think Pro Football Focus wrote about this past week as well too. They're really predicting kind of a fast track for him, thinking that he could really strongly compete for a week 1 spot. I think that's a little much. I think you try to get him, if you can get him on the field and get him some snaps in that week 1, week 2, week 3 game, great. But barring any kind of injury, I think it's just a little bit too much to expect him to be a 40 or 50 play guy, right out of the chute. Now, we did see James Washington log a lot of snaps right out of the chute last year, but heck, I mean, they kind of needed him, right?
Mm-hmm. His path was a lot clearer without Bryant.
Now, when you look at, and there's been a lot of great stuff written and said about James Washington so far this offseason as well, too. But it's the kind of thing that, let's see it. Let's get into training camp. Let's get into the preseason. Go back to last preseason. We saw him make the contest. We saw him do a lot of good things last year during the preseason. That's why it was kind of disappointing. And heck, even his first, and I posted this last night on the Twitter machine as well too. His first catch came in that Week 2 game against Kansas City. It was kind of a, Ben play and kind of extended play, but he broke back towards the middle and Ben hit him, and one catch, one touchdown. And you're thinking at that point, all right, this guy's going to be on pat for 30 catch season or whatnot, and obviously he only hit roughly half that amount there. So we've seen him do some stuff in some preseason games, of course, late last season as well too. And now, man, this is the kind of guy we talked about that this might be the real true X factor on the offense, especially early on in the season. You just really hope he stays healthy and can hit the ground running immediately in his second season here.
Yeah, I think he is definitely the X factor of the offense, potentially the X factor of the entire team. We had that conversation a while back. But I think, with Deante Johnson, obviously PFF's been a little strong with that, but they've been as high on Deante Johnson as any outlet's been, so it's not a surprise to see them kind of, again, bang the gavel for Deante Johnson. But as I mentioned before, I don't expect him to play that heavily right away, but I think the things he did in college will help ease the transition. Those are the things that really kind of hinder James Washington's switch. Johnson playing against press coverage, moving around, being versatile, and kind of being the guy playing in a more conventional offense, so to speak. So those are all things that work in Deante Johnson's favor. I just expect him to score a touchdown his first career touch, because James Washington did, AB did, Martavis Bryant did, Juju did. So it's kind of crazy to see the history there. So that means there's some expectations on Deante Johnson.
Is that wait? I'm not sure I even remember that. So all those guys first touch.
First touch. AB was the kick return against Tennessee.
Okay,
so
okay,
all touchdown right. Reception, but that's why I framed the first touch. But yeah, Bryant, Juju, James Washington, AB, all touchdowns on their first career NFL touch.
All right, interesting there. Interesting nugget. One thing that kind of hit me when going, I wrote about the wide receivers a few times this past week, and one thing that kind of hit me when going back through, and I guess you could rewind the last two years or 3 years at about this time on the podcast. I'm probably saying the same thing. Man, the wide receiver crew, really looks good here. But I think the thing that sticks out the most to me when going back through this year's current depth chart is that outside of the rookie Deante Johnson, you have some guys here that really have a little bit of experience in some form or fashion at the NFL level. Now, obviously, Juju, obviously Dante Moncrief have logged a lot of games already in the NFL there. James Washington, of course, dressed for all but one or two games last season. Ryan Switzer, it's not his first rodeo as well now, but obviously Eli Rogers too has played quite a few snaps. But when you get on down a little bit deeper there, and once again outside of Deante Johnson, Johnny Holton, the guy one of the most recent additions on the Steelers roster, he's logged some decent amount of NFL snaps already, so he's got some experience there. A lot of people forget, I think, that both Trey Griffey and Tevon Jones were both two guys that spent the entire season last year on the practice squad.
Yep.
After both played, I believe, in all 4 preseason games last season. So, I mean, those guys' heads should not be spinning at this point in the process. So you would expect to see a little something out of the two of those guys during the preseason this year. And then the other guy in the mix, Deontay Spencer, obviously has never played, I don't even think in as much as a preseason game yet. But the last 4 seasons he's been in the CFL, and he's got, I meant to try to compile this too, where he ranks in total receptions and yards for receivers in the CFL over the course of the last 4 years. I think he's up there. He might be top 10, top 15 in there. But once again, he had 200 and something receptions during that span of time, I believe. So obviously a little bit or a lot undersized at 5'8" there, but definitely has some speed. Made some big plays the last couple seasons there in the CFL. His path is tough as tough can be. It always seems like we have one guy or two guys in training camp that are kind of the smaller guys, return guys that also can play receiver, but that experience that he has had already in the CFL certainly won't hurt him. So I think when you look at this wide receiver group from top to bottom, where we're at right now, obviously an injury or cut and whatnot can change this in a heartbeat. But you would expect a solid preseason out of this group of 10 guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of experience there. There's a lot of different paths, which is interesting. Some different kind of types of receiver there, but it's still, I think, a young group. And Juju has to step up and lead the group. And I wrote about that a couple months ago in my One Step to Take series. The one thing I want to see from Juju, while there's still improvement to be made on the field, I want to see him lead that room, because obviously everyone knows about losing AB and kind of what he brought to the table. He was the guy that you watched from afar and saw how he worked, and you emulated that. But I think losing DHB is also a critical piece to that room from a leadership standpoint. DHB was the guy that you talked to. He's the guy that you watched film with, the guy that really showed you the ropes and helped introduce the rookies. And I thought that helped, ease someone like Juju's transition. So now you lose both of those guys in the same offseason. And now Juju, I think, has to really, take the baton and become the guy in that room, because while there are players older than him, like an Eli Rogers or a Dante Moncrief, Eli's battling for a roster spot. He doesn't have quite that credibility the same way that Juju does, and Moncrief just got here, and same with some of the other guys as well. So there's a lot on Juju's shoulders this year to be the guy on the field, but also to be the guy off the field. So that's what I'm trying to, and it'll be tough for us to quantify and know, but that's going to be his challenge this year is being the leader in that locker room and then being the guy on the field.
Should Ben play a little bit more this preseason because of new guys like Moncrief, because of new guys like Deante Johnson, because of James Washington really, needing to get some more work with Ben. Ryan Switzer really still kind of a new face in the grand scheme of things. Eli Rogers didn't log many snaps until late last season. Can you get what you need accomplished in training camp, or do you need those more like real game situations in the preseason for Ben? Now, I'm not talking about I'm talking about maybe an extra quarter and a half for Ben.
Well, hasn't it been the third preseason game? He's only played a quarter the last two. Is that it? Am I thinking about that?
Yeah, it hasn't been much. It's been two. It's been like two or three series, right?
Yeah, it's not been the whole first half like the rest of the offense. So I think maybe the only change I would make is maybe having Ben do the whole first half of that third game. But other than that, I'm not playing Ben a lot in the preseason.
Yeah, that's always the balance there is how much do you play him. I think I'm with you. I think maybe you play him. Maybe this is a year that you go back to, and it's probably been several years since it's happened. You play Ben in that third preseason game. I think this year it's against the Titans. You play him through the first half and then let him come out and open the second half, and then for one series, and then send him to the shower.
Yeah, you can do it however. It'll also obviously be partially dependent on how things in training camp go, how you think things are going, and obviously training camp doesn't replicate an in-game, scenario, but, it's going to be just kind of a see how it goes. But Ben's going to have a long year. He's going to, even if he throws less, which we hope he does this year, he threw, 675 pass attempts last year, it's going to be a long season for him, and you don't want to overwork his arm by having him, play more than you have to. But I think just playing the first half of that preseason game, that third one, is probably where I'd go with it.
All right, what's most likely to happen here with Ryan Switzer and Eli Rogers? I'm going to give you some multiple choice here. Both Ryan Switzer and Eli Rogers make the 53. Only Ryan Switzer makes the 53. Only Eli Rogers makes the 53, or both of them fail to make the 53. What is the most likely outcome?
You're giving me some SAT flashbacks here that I don't want to have on a Friday, Dave. I feel like I got to remember how to write my name in cursive. That was the worst part of the SATs. Was they had to write a whole paragraph in cursive. Like, this is the dumbest thing.
You're talking to the wrong person.
I know. That's why I hurried up that thought.
About schooling.
Well, someone out there will get it. When you had to write your name, then you had to write this paragraph that they made you write in cursive, and it was just at the start of the SATs and made you feel like an idiot, and that's how you kicked that one off. If you're asking what's the most likely scenario of the 4 that you gave?
Yes.
It's either going to be that they both make it, Switzer and Eli, or just Switzer makes it. It's a question of, are you keeping 5 or 6? If you keep 6, then obviously you're going to go Switzer and Eli for now, unless someone else emerges. But to give you an actual answer instead of me beating around the bush here, I'm going to say just Switzer makes it. But that's a tough one.
I'm leaning that way right now too, but going back and kind of reviewing some stuff of Ryan Switzer, looking at some of his work from last season there, he's still not a guy that even though he did he had some. One thing we saw that stuck out to me about Ryan Switzer last year is he did make some catches down the field. I think most of them were kind of later in the season there.
Game, he made a ton of catches.
Right, but overall, what was his average yards per reception last year? Like 7? Is that right?
I'd have to look, but the beginning of the year they used him basically as a running back. He was playing out of the backfield, taking angle screens and swing passes, so that thing is average. I can look up what his average was, though.
Yeah, let's. Look, he's not going to be the 12 yards per reception guy anyway. In fact, here it is in front of me. Yeah, he did have. I was right, 7 yards exactly per reception on 36 total receptions, and of course he had that short TD. Who was that against? The Buccaneers, I think, early.
A little out route.
And that's his game. Right there.
Mm.
He is a you need 3 yards. He is that guy. That you can line up slot or predominantly maybe in the slot and then have him run that that 7 yard out and all like that. He can get you those short yards, but obviously because of his size and all like that, he's not. Even though we saw a little bit of it last season, he's not a down-the-field guy, and he's really not, even though he's a return guy, not much of a yak guy either, yards after catch.
Well, do you think there's anything that he can't do in the slot that a slot receiver needs to be able to do?
I don't really think you see him, how many times do we see him run, that slot fade or
how many times have they asked him to run that slot fade?
And maybe that's why, I don't think there's much evidence.
That's not in the repertoire of a typical slot receiver. That doesn't move the needle too much for me. Him not being able to run the slot fade.
Well, I'm just using that as one example.
Yeah.
I would have to go all the way back through his route tree and all, but
sure.
Obviously he can run the mesh and crossings and stuff like that, and we've seen how they've used him out of the backfield and all like that. I don't care to see as much as of that this year, though, to be honest with you, right? I understand why. Especially if you get into the 5 wide receivers packages or something like that that they might occasionally use or whatnot. But look, you could say really a lot of the same things about Eli Rogers. He only he only had 12 receptions last year. Obviously, spent most of the season on PUP, and even 18 receptions the year before. And probably if you average those last 2 seasons out, which was a total of 30 catches for, I don't know, what's that, 220 yards or something like that. He's a 7 yard per reception guy too.
Mm-hmm.
Now he did have in his 2016 season, he did average 12.4 yards. I don't remember if he had a couple of big plays maybe mixed in there or not, but he has at least posted higher yards per reception. I guess what I'm getting at is do you need 2 of guys that have really similar skill set and productions?
Yeah, you have a lot of slot receivers on this team. You have Juju. You have Switzer, you have Eli. I know Diontae Johnson's working outside the start, but he's going to be someone to place in the slot. Your return game's pretty full when you have Switzer, and Johnson can do both, and Juju could do kick returns in a pinch if you needed him to. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Switzer and Eli with Deante Johnson is all going to feel kind of redundant. So that's why I lean Switzer ultimately. But yeah, I mean, to answer my question, I started with, I think Switzer can do pretty much everything that you want and need out of that slot receiver. Now, there are different degrees he can do it too. Juju's such a much better yak threat than Switzer is, as you pointed out. But from a route tree and just kind of schematic standpoint, there's nothing Switzer is going to be limited by. And for me, if Switzer, he gets to finally go through an OTA session. He didn't get to go through that last year. Didn't get to go through a training camp. Had a week before the season started when he got traded over from Oakland. So for him, I really expect him to take a jump this year because he's going to really feel comfortable with the offense and isn't going to be jumping on that moving train. Now, to be fair, Eli's going to have OTAs and training camp too. He missed it last year off the torn ACL, but obviously this isn't his first rodeo in Pittsburgh in a training camp and spring-like setting. So for Switzer, I think he'll be an extra benefit because it's his first time to really breathe as a Pittsburgh Steeler, learn, and really create that excellent chemistry with Ben.
Care to take a guess at what Ryan Switzer's I love this. I love this stat, and props to the to the analytics kind of surge and all. The average depth of target. I enjoy fooling around with that. Care to guess Ryan Switzer's average depth of target number last year on 43 total targets?
It's gonna be low. I'm gonna say 5.3 yards per route target.
Oh, Alex, I'm sorry. You've gone over to showcase retail.
Should have went with $1. Always go with $1.
Exactly. At least that's one thing we can both talk about that we know is Price is Right has been around
every sick day
long.
In school.
We don't have we can't talk a lot about pop culture stuff, maybe other than that, but at least we can share. We'll always have Price is Right, Alex.
Oh my God, what is Ryan Switzer's depth of target?
3.4 yards.
Yeah, I mean that beginning of the year, first 6 weeks, he was a running back. I even compared him to Le'Veon Bell at some point, and he got mad at me about it. But he was, and that was a compliment. It was just using him like a running back.
Now he did have. Get your calculator out here. Take your shoes off. He had 137 yards after the catch on 36 receptions.
So you're asking what the average of that is?
Yes.
3.8.
And quite a few of those, I'm sure, were behind the line of scrimmage, right?
I'm sure we can look that up. But yeah, again, the first 6 weeks. Now, as the year went on, he kind of became more of a traditional receiver. The route tree expanded. He made some plays downfield. I'm looking at the stats. The Denver game, I think, was the big one. But yeah, I mean, the beginning of the year, he was, again, the dude literally had 6 carries last year. He was lined up in the backfield. I mean, he was used in that capacity.
Eli Rogers, only 14 targets last year, 4.4 yards average depth of target there. Juju Smith-Schuster, you want to take a guess at what Juju's average depth of target was?
Man, I don't even know what his yards per reception was. I'll say 9.4.
You're one over.
8.4.
8.4 for Juju. Care to take a guess on what Antonio's was?
Antonio's weird because he's got so many screens thrown to him. I think it actually might have been lower than Juju's. Maybe I'm totally wrong here, but I'll say like 7.3.
It actually is 11.4.
Wow, that high. I mean, I know obviously he got some deep balls, but you just thought with all the screens they fed him, it would knock that number down. So, all right, fair enough.
And James Washington, just to round all this out for everybody, 38 targets last year, and obviously, a lot of those were downfield targets there. 16.6 yards average depth of target for him. So you would, I guess we'll circle back now to the whole crux of what I was getting at there, and I'm with you on this. I really have a feeling this is going to be a Ryan Switzer or Eli Rogers thing here.
Yeah, but it is possible they keep 6. I mean, are you saying by leaning towards just keeping Switzer, they're going to likely keep 5 then? Or do you think there's a 6 that's going to be a different type of receiver?
I honestly think that even if you keep, I think it's a regardless. I think it's regardless if it's 5 or 6, I think there's a decent chance that Eli Rogers doesn't make it.
Who would be the sixth then if it wasn't Eli?
Holton? Now that's a tough one, and that's where we're gonna have going to get into training camp here and the preseason here. This is a gut feeling. I have nothing going. I think they really like Trey Griffey. For whatever reason. So I think that'll be an interesting guy to watch there. And then obviously with Diontae Spencer and what he can potentially add, obviously you're going to have to do something in a return game, to help.
He'll make some plays in preseason and camp. He's a fast, shifty kind of dude.
Can he be this 2000? What year was it? 8, 7 or 8?
Logan.
Yeah, the Stephon Logan.
That 09? That was 09.
Was it 09?
Yeah, he's still playing football. I know you wrote the post about it.
I know.
CFL's like 37, still going at it.
Yeah, he just had a birthday just the other day. I think it was Sunday. And yeah, he's still playing. I think there's a chance because put it to you this way: what's the likelihood that even if you kept 6, that all 6 are going to dress in a game?
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. I do think they're going to still use a lot of 4 receiver sets this year, though, especially after
I think they will. I think they will. Yeah.
So if their intent is to do a lot of that, they may keep the extra receiver, just knowing if somebody goes down and they need to put someone out there for the slot or just whatever role needs to be played for that. I think that's possible. I think most people will go, well, they won't keep 6 active, but if they want to use 4 receiver sets, then they may.
And I know they didn't pay him much overall when they signed him to that 2-year deal this offseason. They did give him a signing bonus that still would be a little kick in the teeth if you had to cut him. But if Eli Rogers is not going to be on your game day dress list, you got to really take a hard look at him.
Sure. Sure, I like Eli, and he's played well. He's gone through a lot of crap in his life. He had the foot injury his rookie year that knocked him out, and he tore his ACL, against Jacksonville 2 years ago.
He got in the Tomlin doghouse for a couple weeks there.
Well, that's more self-inflicted stuff, but just a lot of adversity. Undrafted guys just in general. The guy's played well. I don't want to pretend that he hasn't, but it's always going to be tough for those back-end receivers when you're constantly adding new receivers and new guys to the room.
You go back and you look at was it a touchdown or close to a touchdown against the Bengals a couple years ago? That route that he ran out of the slot, where kind of nod to the outside. And
that was a touchdown, I think.
And all those are kind of things that look. Coming out of Louisville, he's a good route runner.
Yeah, he's a really good route runner. Still is.
So I don't know. I just thought that was worth exploring a little bit deeper today. And look, Ryan Switzer, outside of being a return guy, he's not going to give you much help on special teams. Eli Rogers is the same there. So
yeah, but the return game, he can do both kicks and punts. That's a pretty big element of the return game. So he's got a lot of value there.
Yeah, but can Deante Johnson give you that? Now the whole thing is not put a rookie back there, blah blah blah.
Yeah, well, I would put Switzer back there, who wasn't a rookie, but new to the Steelers. But I don't want to downplay Switzer's return value. To do kicks and punts is pretty. Not everyone can do that. Eli can only do punts, for example. So, I don't want to – just because he can't cover doesn't mean that he doesn't have a lot of special teams value.
Do you think one of Tevin Jones, Trey Griffey, Diontae Spencer, or Johnny Holton, one of those ends up making the 53?
The easy answer right now is no. Holton's interesting, and I get what you're saying about Griffey and Jones because those are guys that have the coverage, value. They're kind of DHB-ish where they ran on kicks and punts throughout their career. And obviously not having
who is the better special teamer that you remember from last year of the two?
Flip a coin. They're the same, pretty much. I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember it clearly, but they're both cut from a similar cloth. Big guys, have speed. Tevin Jones is faster, and they both have slot capability. They both moved around, so take your pick.
I'm gonna have to go back. I haven't looked at what Johnny Holton's done on special teams so far.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. He's done some. Daniel wrote a post on it though. He did some coverage work. He's gotten gunner work before and made plays. So Holton could be a sleeper. If you made me choose a 6 receiver and it wasn't Eli Rogers, I might go Johnny Holton.
All right, Sans Antonio Brown not being there. You kind of happy with this group?
As happy as you can be after you just lost the best receiver in football. So it's not like I'm ecstatic because I just lost the best receiver in football, and I understand why that happened. We don't have to go through that whole thing again. But they're doing as good a job as you can to try to find as many faces to try to replace one guy. Not one guy is replacing AB. It's going to be a collection, but I think they've done about as good a job as possible as trying to identify that talent.
All right. Well, that was a good talk about that depth chart.
One last note with the receivers, since we're on the topic we talked about on Tuesday's show, the coaching interns for this year, David Johnson, with the tight ends. William Gay, I thought was going to be with the secondary because that just seemed the most logical sense, but he's actually coaching with the receivers, which is fine by me because you get a different perspective, the TV perspective with the receivers. Guys cross-train, that's fine, but to clarify, William Gay is with the receivers, not the secondary.
Yeah, and it's something I didn't think about right when that announcement was made of those two. And wasn't it, didn't Tom Mead just do a post for us about Deante Johnson and how he does have a few tells?
Yeah, it's really funny. Exactly. Yeah, Deante Johnson was talking about Gay, saying that Johnson was basically tipping some plays, and that's exactly what Tom Mead wrote earlier this week, just talking about how his stance and the way he carries his hands will signify run pass, which is certainly something that receivers have to be aware of.
And if Tom picked that up, you would think the Steelers have already picked up on something like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So again, I know people say, why is Gay with the receivers, but look, I gave the example of Mike Tomlin. He was a receiver at William & Mary, became a really good, well known for his defensive work and his secondary work. So, if you're a receiver, you study DBs. What did William Gay do through his career? He studied receivers every single week. So, I'm totally cool with that.
All right, where to?
Let's flip over to the defense, Dave, and I wrote the question today, and I know it's kind of a hypothetical, and obviously it's me being very, very optimistic, but I think it is at least possible that this defense hits 60 sacks in 2019. Again, really high number, hasn't been done since the 2013 Panthers, but they had 52 last year, they had 56 the year before. If everything goes right, I think it's possible. Agree or disagree?
That's lofty, man. I
know it's lofty.
Yeah, I mean the obvious answer is no.
Sure. Is it possible? Is it? I think it's possible.
Well, look, you've got experienced guys up front, Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, and Javon Hargrave. You got a guy in Watt who's proven that he can get after the quarterback. Bud, Bud's going to be one of these, and we'll talk a little bit more about him in a little bit. The big thing, and Stephon Tuitt and Bud Dupree have both said this, kind of predictively, I guess you'd say, they need to finish better. How many times have these guys had, come close, and close only counts. Look, I don't want to downplay the pressure aspect because pressures, especially if you can get them within 3 seconds of the football being snapped, are huge. If you can get that quarterback to pull that football down, even if he does eventually get rid of it, you've kind of probably reshaped the play a little bit from a defensive standpoint there. Devin Busch is a hell of a blitzer. If there's one positive attribute about having a guy like Devin Busch, or one of the many, it's the fact that straight line, his ability to get through small creases and get after quarterbacks is very good. You would expect to see him turn loose in certain pressure situations, and even if it ends up being a 4 or 5 man rush, it doesn't necessarily look, you can have four man rushes that are blitzes. You drop a guy out, you sugar the look a little bit,
and the Steelers do that all the time.
Sure, and obviously Fire X is a big part of what they do, those stunts and all. So if those guys stay healthy up front, and you get the occasional return of maybe Mike Hilton being able to time some of those maybe slot blitzes and all like that. I wouldn't bet my entire house against it, but I'd probably bet a good chunk of it.
Let me ask you this. Let me take you through, because I did just an overall rough projection. Again, I understood on the high end of things here, but for each player, tell me if this is too lofty of a realistic goal for them to hit in 2019. TJ Watt leading the group here, 15 sacks. Is that fair?
That's high.
He had 13 last year.
I know, but he come free on a couple.
I hope might come free. I'm not saying they're all quality. I'm just saying they're going to be sacks. He's probably going to come free a couple times again.
I personally, I think I'd be pretty ecstatic if he hit that number again.
Mm-hmm.
I would call that a little bit of a reach.
All right. What is 13 more reasonable? Let's say he repeats last year.
I think that's more reasonable.
Okay. Cam Hayward, I have at 10. back at double digits. He's averaged 10 the last 2 years.
That's doable if he stays healthy and everybody stays healthy up front. Yeah, I think that's doable.
I mean, we're assuming good health here. Obviously, this is, again, just the idealistic version of this. But Stephon Tuitt, it's a little bit of a reach here maybe, but 7. I say the light comes on and he gets from that 5-sack range to the 7-sack range.
You know, the funny thing about him, I mean, he has been close on quite a few. You know, so he probably, I don't know how many. I had to go back and look. He's probably lost at least 6 or 7 of them from just missing. You know,
it's been literally a half step away from getting 4 more sacks.
And he's obviously one of the knocks on him the last couple of seasons, just trying to keep him, 100%. You know,
but is 7 reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah.
I didn't sound too confident.
Yeah, I mean, if they all can't have those high numbers, If he had 7, I mean, maybe one of those coming from Cam. All right, I'll give you that. I'll give you the 7.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, idealistic here, but 7. All right, Bud Dupree was 6. He's basically had 6 last 2 years. Is that fair?
Oh yeah, that's fair.
I figured, yeah.
That would upset a lot of people still, but I mean. Man, he got to hit at least 8.5 or 9.
Hargrave with 6. Is that fair?
I think that's a little high.
He had 6.5 last year.
I think that's still a little high. I'm not expecting to repeat that number.
All right. Well, what do you think? What do you think is a reasonable number for him?
I think 4, 3 or 4.
All right, we'll go 4. Okay. I went with Vince Williams and Devin Busch with 5 sacks each, but basically I'll put it this way: the inside linebackers will create 10 sacks.
Boy, it'd be interesting. What's the last time that inside linebackers have combined for the Steelers for that?
I mean, Vince Williams had, 8.5 2 years ago, so would someone else have 1.5 chip in?
Yeah,
probably.
maybe. Yeah.
So, but it's 10 sacks for, just say Williams, Busch, Barron, inside linebackers to hit 10 as a unit.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible.
I mean, I know it sounds high, but for how much they blitz those guys, I mean, Keith Butler does a really good job scheming those guys up. I think 10 is reasonable.
Okay.
All right. Denier with 3 as a backup outside linebacker. I think Chick had 2 last year. For Denier gets playing time. I mean, you could insert Chicolo's name if you really wanted to with 3. And
give me a combined Denier Chicolo number.
4 Denier and Chicolo is what I have.
Okay, I would say yes to that.
All right. Hilton with 2. 3 2 years ago, 1 last year. Split the difference. Go 2 this year.
Okay.
All right, and then to round out the rest of the group, Alulu and Bugs with 2 total, 1 each. They each get a sack.
I thought I remembered 1 last year, but Alulu did not have a sack.
Yeah, I thought he did too. It was like a Mandela effect, where we all thought he had 1. He didn't have 1 last year, but he had. How many did he have the year before? 4?
The thing that he does good, and it's an underrated aspect of his game, is his ability when he slants, maybe when maybe they run a stunt or whatnot like that, and he has to go from the inside into like let's say the B gap. He has a good ability to hook guards.
Mm-hmm. A little crafty veteran.
Yeah, I mean he has a good ability to hook and turn them, and that of course opens up. I think maybe that's what we're thinking. Maybe was it Bud or Dupree? Maybe one of them last year, maybe against the Bengals or something like that, benefited from that hook or something like that is probably what I'm remembering there.
Okay.
But what'd you have total between those two?
2. 1 each, yeah. You could do both with 2.
Are you gonna throw Dan McCullers in there?
If you want to, yeah. You just say the rest of the defensive line, basically, that aren't the starters, Hayward, Hargrave, Tuitt, has 2 sacks total.
Okay, I'll sign up for that.
All right, and then the last ones are basically the rest of the secondary, not named Mike Hilton, having 2 sacks. I have Edmonds for 1, Marcus Allen with 1 as well. But basically,
Boy,
just
how many does Sean? Of course, Sean, where he's playing now, probably not going to see.
He'll never blitz. They never blitz safety.
But how many times did he miss?
Yeah, that's why he's playing free safety.
when he played down played down lower in the box there. So. I mean, can Edmonds?
Edmonds had 1 last year against Phillip Rivers, his first sack. Marcus Allen
that was a flush from the pocket on Rivers.
Yeah. Hey, they're all sacks. I mean, they all
count.
So I bet just 2 from the rest of the secondary, corner, safety, whatever. That fair?
I'll sign up for that.
All right. So a little bit different than mine. But I don't know if you realize this or not, Dave. You just gave the Steelers 60 sacks this year.
All right. Jeez, and how many times has that been done?
Not often. Since 2000, I think it's happened 4 times. 2013 was the last instance. Steelers have never done 56 as their high mark. At least in the era of sacks being counted. You know, it doesn't count Steel Curtin that may have had it a long time.
And even if you came 3 short of that.
Yeah, I think it's within even if the numbers are off a little bit. I mean, they're right there.
And I know sacks, once again, sacks are not the end-all, do-all, but if you're getting those, you're assuming that you're getting some pressures and some, the same percentage of that kind of good pass rushing along the way. And in turn, you would think that they're not going to drop 14 interceptions this year, 13, 14 interceptions this year. You're also thinking that, there's not going to be 8 of those loose strip sack footballs that go back to the offense on top of it. So, I think if you did let's say you hit the 57 or 58 number, definitely not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, are they going to hit 60? Is it likely? No, but I think it's possible if everything kind of goes right, and I think hitting at least 55 is certainly possible. It's almost a disappointment in one sense if you don't hit in the mid-50s, because I think there's a talent in the scheme and the aggression to do so.
Let me go this route though with you though. We've seen them in the past though stack 7 or 8 in a game.
You don't get to play Cleveland.
I know. That's all good and fine, but I guess what I'm getting at is maybe let's like to see more consistency on a game by game basis. I guess.
Yeah.
Because look. Bud's not going to have Harrison to go against over there with Cleveland.
I was going through clips of Desmond Harrison yesterday. Just that game against Pittsburgh, it was a mess. But the Browns, I wrote about this yesterday. The Browns have a decent offensive line, but if there's one weakness to that Browns team right now, it's the offensive line. It's an average group at best.
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out to me the most when going over the Steelers' high sacks the last couple of years is the fact that a lot of them came in a handful of games.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Did a lot of them? There were games where they certainly had a ton of sacks, but I don't know what exactly. Did they have big droughts that I'm not aware of?
I would have to go back and look.
Yeah,
at it.
So I haven't seen the numbers, so I don't know if I agree with that statement. But obviously, yeah, they had games where they had like 7 sacks, and how many did they have on Tyrod week 1? I think it was 7 or 8. So that helps. But they could have that in a game this year. I think it's reasonable for the Steelers to project one great sack game, against somebody this year. It's possible. Anyway, I just want to take your temperature on that. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Obviously 53 to 56 is more likely, but I think if everything goes right, 60 sacks, they could do it.
And you actually have 64 totaled out here.
Yep, and then you want 2 less with Watt, 2 less with Hargrave, and I gave you 60.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm just saying it's possible. Dave, where do we want to go now? With Sean Davis. I thought Davis had an interesting comment, kind of sticking with the defense. This was made, I think, end of May in Penn Live, and just talking about how the defense, basically saying the defense has to be less predictable, and they have to be able to disguise and hold their coverages more. And I think that's certainly one reason why. Also, they dropped a ton of interceptions last year, and that's a big reason why they didn't have as many takeaways. But when you had Edmonds last year as a rookie and you didn't really expect to play him nearly as much as you did, I think that forced the defense to become a lot more static. It couldn't be as flexible with its coverage and its looks and its disguises. And I thought as the year went on, especially the Patriots game, for example.
Especially the Patriots game.
They did a much better job of being able to start disguising coverages and give opposing offenses different looks. So I think that is going to be one big factor this year. Is you have Edmonds, who's going to be kind of like a veteran this year in the sense he's played a lot. He's comfortable. You trust him. And you add Steven Nelson, you kind of have a returning group overall with Sean Davis, free safety, 2nd year in a row. So I think that will help the defense be able to disguise and create different looks, and that will create more confusion for the offense.
I hate to keep going back to this with the Baltimore Ravens last year and Eric Weddle and they teams that can do that. And the funny thing about the Ravens last year is as good a defense as they had, no
takeaways.
Yeah, they stunk in the takeaway department as well too. But overall, they did their job. But imagine what kind of season, especially once I guess I had to look and see what their turnovers were. And who they play first round of the playoffs? You remember?
The Chargers. Is it the Chargers?
I'm gonna have to look at that myself. How quickly we forget here.
Yeah, wasn't it the Chargers? Because the Chargers used the 6 DBs, and they did that whole thing.
Yeah. It was the Chargers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many? Let's look at that game book real quick. How many turnovers they had in that game?
The defense created?
Yeah, the Ravens defense in that game against the Chargers there. Let's see. Rivers did not throw an interception in that game, and there was one lost fumble by Virgil Green in that game. So they had just one turnover in that game. But I mean, the gist of what I was getting to is I don't remember how many times watching Ravens tape last year I thought, man, how great are they at disguising pre-snap there? And that's one of the things I think a lot of people are still. And look, I know they signed who they signed the safety
Earl Thomas.
Yeah, and he's a great safety, but he's to me that defense has got no choice but to take a step backwards, at least overall. I think in scheme and disguise. Now you would think that they'd be able to up their turnovers based from what they were able to do last year, but I still think no Suggs, no Mosley,
Zadarius Smith.
They lost Weddle. Jimmy Smith's another year older. I think that defense takes a step back. But back to your
do they still have a better defense than Pittsburgh?
Man, that's $1 million question right now.
I think they still got a ton of talent. They still got Tony Jefferson and Marlon Humphrey. Their Earl Thomas is a pretty good way to swallow losing Eric Weddle.
I think it's going to be very disappointing if in end all say all that the Steelers don't have as good a defense because I don't think the Ravens are going to be one of these top 8, 9, 10 pass defenses this year. If the Steelers can't top that, then I
was asked this question in the mailbag basically. How good can this defense be? And it should be better than last year, but it's coaching, man. I mean, there's talent there, but you trust this coaching staff to get these guys in the right positions.
Well, how many times do we write about communication every year?
Yeah, it wasn't as bad last year, though. I mean, there were moments, as there will be for any team over the course of a full season. But, I mean, how many times did that defense get put in bad matchups last year?
Well, you shouldn't have Artie Burns dragging you down, for one.
Yeah. But I'm talking about just the coaching aspect and just
linebackers. Here's something I was thinking this morning as I was unfortunately having to watch Tom Brady unpack another
Why are you watching Tom? Don't do that. Don't torture yourself like that, Dave. You're glutton for punishment.
Tom Brady play with his rings and all like that. As good as Tom Brady has been, and make no mistake about it, he's the GOAT. He's had to play with so many different defenses over the years, man. They've had so much turnover. They use so many players on the defensive side of football. The Patriots do. How good is that coaching? Man, how many times they change defensive coordinators? Yet, push comes to shove. Their defense decides a lot of things for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously you need good quarterback play. That goes without saying. But you just can't win it all on quarterbacks alone. And yeah, I mean, coaching. Is there anybody better than Belichick at being able to get his players to buy in and learn the system and be in the right place and execute on top of it? Take away what the offense does best on a weekly basis.
And has there been a defense that's done a worse job of that than Pittsburgh the last 2 years?
No, I mean, look, I thought about this, and it goes. Boy, you're sending me. Look at the rabbit holes you're setting me here, wormholes. I thought about this way, and really, it's against the Steelers' MO to do it to have mid-season, coordinator stuff and changes and all like that. But if this team gets off to a bad start defensively in the first 2 or 3 games, I mean, a very bad start. I mean, look, they're going to have their hands full against Brady right out of shipment. They play some. We're going to know a lot of, and I think I said this when the original schedule came out. We're going to know a lot about the Steelers defense early. And even though we saw a couple years ago the Steelers defense kind of make strides in the second half of the season. The second half of the season this year probably going to be too late. You know, that kind of thing. You play the Patriots and Brady. You play Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, and then you play Garofalo and my tight end buddy over there, Kittle, experienced quarterback in Dalton, who's got some decent wide receivers still over there, and all. Then you get the Ravens, which probably more of a can you defend against the speed of Lamar Jackson, and then you get the Chargers and Phillip Rivers. That's your first 6 games there. If you come out of those first 4 games, and you think that you have the talent on the defense that's better than what you show. You see where I'm going here. Is there a chance that you make a change and maybe put Terrell Austin or somebody? In other words, promote, and maybe it's a flat out, Keith, you got to go back to coaching the outside linebackers, and that's it. And you put Terrell Austin in charge of that defense, even though some will say, well, isn't Mike Tomlin calling the defense anyway? You know, you see where I'm going here. Is there? Sure. And I'm not predicting that they would make an in-season change, but if there was ever a reason to maybe do it, because yeah, you're right. They went out there. They got a top 10 draft pick now in Devin Busch. That you sorely needed that speed in that defense. You went out and signed a guy like Mark Barron. You went out and signed a guy like Steven Nelson. As it looks right now, your front 5, you know, are guys that have played in this defense. You know.
All first-round picks.
You know, a while
basically.
A while here. You got a second-round pick deep in his second season at free safety there. You got a first-round pick in Terrell Edmonds now in his second season. You're expecting change. You got another former first-round pick and a guy like Joe Hayden there. So yeah, I mean, if not now, when?
Yeah, I know. To answer your question shortly, yeah, I mean, it's possible. And obviously everyone's going to point to New England and Seattle because of the great offensive talent that's there, and that's totally fair. But San Francisco, I mean, the mind of Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive schemers in the NFL. That's why he got the job in San Francisco, going against Keith Butler. That's going to keep me up at night. And then even Zach Taylor, an offensive mind. I know Bengals don't have as much talent as other teams, but he's going to be a creative guy that's going to help guys win and take advantage of matchups. So I could see the Steelers, and again, we are getting way down the rabbit hole here, but I could see them losing that 49ers game because the Steelers don't have the right answers to San Francisco's offensive game plan. Because I think who's the better coaching matchup in that game? From a Shanahan versus Butler perspective, it's Shanahan in a runaway.
You should already expect. Look, the loss of AB and the loss of AB alone means that you're going to have to account for something on the defensive side of football. Play better defense, I think.
Yeah, create more takeaways for that offense. That's the number one. That's the number one way this defense can help this offense overcome the loss of AB.
So if you come out of these first 4 games, Alex, and you're 1-3 with your lone win, I don't know, Cincy.
Yeah.
Is that enough for Butler to hang around as defensive coordinator?
I mean, it depends exactly how that happens.
There's going to be a lot of upset. You come out of that first 4 or 5 games with only 2 wins. There'll be some hollering and the Chargers on deck. There's going to be some hollering folks.
Yeah, and even if they make a change, I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly how it's going to go. Is it going to be Austin really doing the play calling? Is it going to be Tomlin taking over full time? Is it going to be Austin just being the de facto do what Tomlin says guy? I don't know. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, it's possible they make a change. I mean, they could happen out of the gate. I'll be watching Keith Butler really closely in the preseason and early in the regular season to see if he still has the play sheet or if Tomlin has it, or if the roles have changed a little bit.
Now, flipping from negative Nancy. If you come out against the Patriots and you can once again, and that's another reason why I think I like playing the Patriots early in the season here. I really think this is semi-advantage Steelers, however many points you want to give them because of that. I mean, make no mistake about it. I mean, Tom Brady's 18-0 TD versus interception rate at home against the Steelers during his career. They, blah, blah, blah. They don't lose to the Steelers at home. If you come out somehow, some way, and you beat the Patriots in their backyard, I don't care if it's 6-3, then there's going to be a lot of reason and then a lot more expectations for those first through until the bye week as well too.
Yeah. No, I mean, it could go either way. Yeah, no doubt about that. So, yeah, I mean, we don't have to go in the rabbit hole more than we have, but I got the infamous fire whistle going, so you talk.
Right. The end-all, do-all here is going back to us talking about the Ravens and the Steelers. I mean, I expect them to have a better defense than the Ravens this year. And I expect that defense to be, top 10, 11, 12, right around there at the very least.
Better than Baltimore. Maybe they will be, but to say that I expect it, that's too far from me. Now.
Are you expecting the Ravens to have a top 10 adjusted net yards per passing attempt number?
All right. Well, you gave me numbers I can't even comprehend, but yes, I do.
Okay.
Are you?
I'm expecting them to I'm expecting to be a middle of the pack defense this year.
Ooh, I know they've lost some, but man, that defensive line's still strong, and they got good coaching. They put those guys in positions to win.
All right.
Dave, you wanted to touch on the 18-game season. That's going to be a big topic of debate. I know it's kind of kicked up recently. The NFL's, continued to make hints about it, and obviously with the new CBA that's upcoming, certainly could be something on the table. Obviously good for the NFL, for a business side, having 18 regular season games, but the players are obviously it's going to take a lot for the players to get there.
Yeah, you would think this is going to be a big, it has in the past, and Captain Obvious saying it's going to be a big bargaining chip on the league side this year. I mean, the revenue from 2 extra games obviously would be huge for the league, but I mean, I personally side with the players here. I think it's too much. Quite honest, yeah. To be quite honest with you, I know people will say, well, look, here's what you do: you extend the rosters, from 53 to 60. You extend that, you put an extra bye week in there, yada yada yada. I still think that's a little bit too much, and I think doing that also would cost a couple of preseason games. How do you feel about the two separate things overall? How do you feel about shortening to 4 preseason games, and then how do you feel about an 18-game season?
I am someone that certainly is resistant to change in general, but I want to keep everything the same because I think those preseason games are really valuable. I think obviously the undrafted guys and the long shot players and the 54 through 90 guys on the roster get such a raw deal time and time again that if they can't get playing time in the preseason, then when on earth are they ever going to get it? And how are you going to get a Philip Lindsay type when you can't ever play? And I think with the regular season, I think you're good at 16. If you go to 18, you're certainly going to have to do a lot of things with players, but I still think that's going to be too much wear and tear.
I did hear Dan Orlovsky, former NFL quarterback, talk about this on ESPN the last few days ago. They're talking about, well, the preseason games and all that like that. You can recreate, you can create better atmospheres with a couple of scrimmages.
Ask any head coach. Ask Mike Tomlin if you can replace what happens inside a stadium with a scrimmage. I think he'll tell you no.
He points to the fact that, okay, if you want to see a team's pressure, you want to see your team against another team's pressure packages, you can just, it's like an a la carte menu. Today we want to work mostly on this, and this, right? You could create more.
And how are you? Every team? How are they setting that up? Is every team calling another team, and it's a free for all?
I don't know how you'd get in. I mean, the logistics and all like that is another topic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Imagine if you just did have some kind of rotating,
No, you got to put these guys inside a stadium. You got to get them away from the coaches. You got to get them in a different environment. You got to get them in a Sunday environment, in a loud stadium where they're on their own. I mean, you can't put these guys in scrimmages and expect them to act the same way and project that to a game day environment.
And I think Ramon Foster made the good argument, as you stated. Look, I was once an undrafted guy as well too. If I didn't have those extra couple games, what I've made,
Yeah. Because if you go to 2, one of them's got to be for the starters to get their work in, the half or whatever. So you got a game and a half for those guys. And if someone gets hurt, there's an injury. I mean, it's just screwing over these guys time and time again. They don't get paid anything. They get, they're struggling to get pensions and health care and. Now they're cutting away the preseason time. You cut away the practice time that these guys can have in the off season. I mean, it's ridiculous if you're going to take away the preseason from those guys.
And I doubt that if they took away the preseason games or replaced them with a couple of scrimmages, I doubt they'd give us full TV. We're going to televise a scrimmage today between,
the NFL will milk anything, though, so I don't put it past them.
Yeah, but to me, I fear of losing out as a fan/analyst on – because, look, I'm not going to go and watch these scrimmages,
Yeah.
And if I'm not given full access to every play, I'm going to be very, very disappointed if I don't have that to go look at. I'm an old guy. I hate change as well too. I hope nothing happens with the 4 preseason game aspect of it. I understand that you and I and maybe to some probably 20% of our listenership watches every play of every preseason game, and I realize most don't. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I sure would hate to lose that element of it.
Yeah, those guys need tape, even if not for their city, to go somewhere else, to have good tape to send out to other teams. And if you go to 18 regular season games, they're definitely cutting 2 preseason. You can't just have 18 and 4 preseason. The schedule becomes too long, and Super Bowl gets pushed back, and they're not going to go for that. But I'm not in favor of cutting the preseason games.
And I found it hard to imagine. The NFL would really have to give up a lot on their end to the players to get them to agree to an 18-game schedule, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could do it, though, if the money makes sense. I mean, it's all what it all comes down to. If they have to spend more money in healthcare and whatever the concessions are, but they're going to make more money on the TV side of things for those extra 2 weeks, the NFL's going to do it.
Well, it's going to be
whatever makes them more money is what they're going to do.
Right, but I just think in order for them, I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, look, it's something that we're going to start talking about more and more from here on out. Mm-hmm. About the upcoming CBA. Any way that they sign a CBA extension before the extension expires.
No,
I think before the current CBA expires.
No, I think there will be. I've talked about it before. I think there will be a lockout, and I think we could be looking at a lengthy one, not just miss a little bit of camp in the Hall of Fame game. I think we could be looking at a real stalemate because there are serious issues. I mean, players are going to push for marijuana being legal in the NFL, and I agree with that, but I think it's a tricky way.
Lifetime benefits,
lifetime health
money.
Care, and the concussion stuff, Goodell's power, and the way that he's kind of, I think fairly said, overstepped his bounds and kind of become judge, jury, executioner. I mean, Ramon Foster's talked about they're telling guys, save your money because we could be seeing a lockout here, and that's why the players kind of had to cave in the last CBA agreement was because the players ran out of money. They didn't know the lockout was coming. Players were ill-equipped for it, and they were really putting pressure on the union saying, we don't have any more money. We need to get back to the football and start playing so we can get paid. And that's why the deal had to come about as quickly as it did. This time I think there's better planning for it.
It sounds good in theory, but they were saying the same things, back in 2009 and 10, start saving your money.
I don't think they said it as much and they didn't push it as hard. And actually, I think what they did this year was, and this happened, I think, last year or 2 years ago, every player gets paid for their likeness in Madden and like promotional stuff. There's a big pool of money that gets sent out and it gets distributed to the players, I think, pretty equally. But I think the unions withheld that. They're not giving the players that money right away because it's being pooled and saved. They didn't do that before. So, I mean, I think they're being a lot more proactive about it this time than last time.
And I think, you had the haves. Obviously, you had the haves and the have-nots in the NFL. And I keep reminding myself next time I have Joel Corey on is to look at what, a guy that signs a rookie draft pick down at the bottom, say a 5th-round draft pick that signs a 4-year contract, how much money that player actually pockets through 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should get everything and more,
Yeah.
Do I think that we're going to eventually see fully guaranteed contracts? I would push for it. Look, this is their if they don't do it now, they're going, this will obviously probably end up being another 10-year CBA, you would think.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they're gonna get fully guaranteed contracts this time around. I don't think it's gonna happen.
They keep talking about not caving, and if they stick to that, then this thing could get into. I mean, could we lose a full season, Alex?
I don't want to sound alarmist. That would be on the high end of things, but I'm not going to rule it out. I think we're in for we're talking at least months with the lockout. I think it's possible because that's a lot of pressure on the NFL if you miss regular season games. I mean, the NFLP will have power in that sense that they can create that kind of leverage where it's all going to come back on Goodell because Goodell's the highest, most well-known face in that, back and forth, and it's going to fall on them if they don't have football each Sunday.
Yeah, but them owners have some deep pockets, brother.
Yeah, but the NFL is nothing more than a PR firm, and a lockout would be the worst PR disaster for the league. Not that they can recover; they'll recover from it, but in that moment, it'll be rough for them.
All right, I'm sure we bored enough people with CBA talk now.
Well, let's fire him back up with what our friend Maurice Jones-Drew had to say last night on maybe just the worst constructed segment.
Holy moly, that was awful. That was stuttering Dave beyond awful.
Yeah, my first NFL Network promo by Mattel is what that was. Maurice Jones-Drew, though, to the substance, had the Steelers going 7-9, which riled up the masses as you knew it would.
That and still him picking them to go 7-9 was the least of my concerns of that segment. I'm not sure Akbar Giabaja Mila, bless me, knew the rules going into this thing. And if you watch this segment that I had that we posted on SteelersDepot.com as well too, you'll definitely understand that somebody didn't explain the rules to Akbar, and I think Maurice Jones-Drew got aggravated with him as well. Look, I mean, there's probably a 10, 20, 30% of our listenership that probably thinks that 7-9 is. Maybe not 30%. Probably, what would you say? 10% of our listenership probably think that 7-9 is a possibility for the Steelers.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then there's probably a much larger selection that probably thinks 9-7, right?
I think the most fans will do the whole 9-7, 10-6 kind of dance that we often do.
Probably 10% will probably say 11-5 or better. The fanboys, if you will. Look, I mean, it seems by this time of the off season, you go through the schedule, you try your best. I mean, so many things shape a season and all. I found it probably the most amusing that, and really mostly on the back half of the schedule. Maurice Jones-Drew has them losing twice to the Browns. Now, look, I'll give the Browns maybe one game, and you would probably as well, right?
Yeah, if you split it, fine by me.
The possibility of that. I think there's not many people. Look, the Browns are a lot of people on this Browns train this offseason here. You want to talk about some high expectations? The Browns have them with a second-year quarterback. You want to look at the Steelers with a fairly experienced team overall. No, I don't want to play the nobody's giving them any respect, but it doesn't look like the Steelers are getting a lot of respect.
Baltimore fans are going to be mad about you. About Baltimore not getting any respect. They won the division last year. No one's picking them.
Yeah, well, look, I think you want to talk about growing pains of a quarterback in the second season. Who's he going to?
Well, they still did it. They did it last year with. There was the same question last year. They had half of Joe Flacco and a rookie Lamar Jackson, and they still won the division.
I just think it catches up to them. I just think it really catches.
Well, I'm just saying that's the cards that they're playing, and they were playing this over the Baltimore airways right now, saying Dave Bryan doesn't. He's our Maurice Jones-Drew.
Look, I can see why you would give them losses to the Patriots. I can see West Coast out to San Francisco slipping up and losing that one. I can see losing to the Chargers on the West Coast. That's 3 losses. That Colts game is going to be circle that Colts game. It's going to be a huge game. I think Jones-Drew has them losing to the Colts, losing to the Rams at home. I mean, this is a team that went to the Super Bowl last year, so you can make an argument that could happen. The Browns sweeping, I'll argue with that. And then closing out the year with 2 losses, back-to-back losses to the Jets and Ravens. If the Steelers are 7-7 going into their final 2 games, and they lose back-to-back games to close out the season against the Jets and the Ravens, oh, Lord, Twitter's going to melt down.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I don't care about what Maurice Jones-Drew said. I'm not losing a moment of sleep over it. My only disagreements would really be losing both to Cleveland and then losing to the Jets. And so I guess that would put me at 9-7. I mean, I'm not that I'm saying that's my prediction, but I think everything else that he has is reasonable. I mean, you can disagree with it, but I think it's reasonable.
9-7 can get you in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah. But is that? Do you have any other disagreements with how he picked him, with what he had at the loss?
No, look, I just said the Patriots. You could see them going 1-1 in their first two games in whatever method, and you could see them going 1-2 in some form or fashion potentially. In their first three games. On their flip side, this is a talented enough team that, I don't think anybody should be stunned if they go 3-0 in the first three. I mean, it's unlikely, obviously. I think the most likely scenario, less shocking, would be 2-1. Look, you damn sure better sweep the Bengals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you better.
All right, you better not lose to the Dolphins.
Yeah, the first 8 weeks, 7 games of Jones' Drew prediction, I'm fine with. He is in 4-3. Like losing the Patriots, 49ers at LA, I can understand all that. I can buy all that.
Well, like I said, you get down to the fight. It comes down to maybe that swing game against the Colts. Okay, depends on what side of the fence you want to be in on that, and then those final two games. So yeah, I think overall, like I said to start, I'm less upset with Jones Drew and his game by game predictions outside of the final two games, and him having the Browns sweep the Steelers.
Yeah, so you're kind of having
everybody they want to call the Browns and the Steelers the biggest rival in the NFL right now. Boy, you want to talk about some off-season hyperbole. And it's a team that's beaten the Steelers how many times since 2000 and tied them, what was it, 4 wins, 5 wins?
Well, the circumstances are much different.
Sure, and history means absolutely nothing, right? And the quarterback situation, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, this is a lot of pressure on a second-year quarterback with a team that, to me, lost a very aggressive, good defensive coordinator in Greg Williams.
No, yeah, I mean, again, I've talked about the issues Cleveland will have is coming together as a team. Second-year quarterback, so I think Baker will deal with the pressure fine. But a first-year head coach, all the new pieces coming in. We heard this with the Eagles in 2011, the Dream Team. It didn't work out. We've seen that. We've seen the song and dance before. But Cleveland's going to be a good team, and they're going to give Pittsburgh a heck of a game in both these matchups. So, both of those games are going to come down to 3 or 4 plays. It'll decide it, and hopefully it goes Pittsburgh's way in at least one of them.
All right, tell me true or false. You better not lose these games, both against Cincinnati.
True.
Miami on a Monday night.
True.
In Pittsburgh.
Still true.
All right. One of 2 games against the Browns.
True.
Arizona.
At
Arizona.
I mean, obviously you want to win that one. I mean,
you better not lose that one.
Well, we're just saying true to all these, I guess, aren't we? I mean,
Buffalo.
Buffalo. I'll say false just because you got the Cardinals and Jets sandwiched around them. If you can win 2 of those 3, you can live with it. San Francisco. Is that a better win, San Francisco?
I mean, look, I'm the one that said I think Jimmy Garoppolo has a chance to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years. Last year, that offense is going to be. I think that offense, if Garoppolo can stay healthy, I expect the 49ers to be right there.
Okay, I'm doing better at true false than you are. True or false? You better beat San Francisco week 3.
False.
False.
All right. I think that's a losable game.
Well, I'm just saying you got to pick one of those first 3 games. You got to win, right? Patriots, Seattle, San Francisco. You can't go 0-3. You better win one of those games.
You better beat Seattle at home.
All right, is that what you're going with? Okay, yeah. Fair enough. You gotta win at least one of those games. 2-1 would be ideal.
Are you less optimistic about this 2019 team than I am?
I probably think about the schedule less, so maybe that's the reason why. And we're battling each other for who's the bigger cynic between you and I. I might be a little less optimistic, but I don't think about these things. I don't like doing the win-loss stuff. I think you like it more than I do, so that might be the reason why I'm coming off as more cynical.
Okay, I am probably, and if there's anything, I'm probably maybe at this point than you are. I'm a little bit more too optimistic about the defense.
Okay, and probably true, yeah. But that's my deep-seated disdain for Keith Butler because I've just keeps me up at night. But to be very clear, as I said before, yes, his team can win the AFC North. Yes, his team can make a playoff run. All those things are possible. Will it be tougher without AB? Yes, but is it still possible? Absolutely.
If they go 7-9, that would be the first losing season since 2003, right?
Yeah, 6-10. Yeah, that's what led him to Big Ben. Yeah, Tommy Gunn. Who else was on the team?
You want to talk about some upset folks?
Yeah, and you know, that'd be wow. Yeah, with Mike Tomlin's hot seat, what happens to that if they go 7-9?
Obviously, I don't think he gets fired, but I don't think I've said this since for the last couple of years. I think it's going to take more than just it would really have to take a very, very bad, less than 7-9 season. I think.
See, that's where we disagree because 7-9, 5-11, it's been a disaster either way you want to slice it. In my mind, and in the Steelers Nation, there's no difference between 5-11 and 7-9.
Hey, I will paraphrase it like this: if the Steelers go 7-9, something probably has happened that shouldn't have happened. In other words, an injury to your quarterback or something like. As I sit right now, and believe it or not, I'm an optimistic guy, really am. In general, there's not a body in my bone right now that can see this team go 7-9 or worse in 2019.
Okay. Yeah, you're definitely more optimistic than I am. Not saying that it will happen, but I don't rule really anything out. This team's got some variance to it that's a little concerning.
All right. Where to? We spent a lot of time on Maurice Jones-Drew. That whole segment's just a train wreck. With him.
It's the off season, and everyone's just trying to get through it. So are we, clearly. I think we can probably jump to the read emails. We had some stuff on Bud and Watt on Devin Busch, but Bud's saying best year ever coming for him. We'll see. Watt impressed by Devin Busch, join the club. I think that's pretty obvious stuff.
Yeah, quicker than snot. That's pretty damn quick.
I guess.
Let's see here. Poor Brett now. We told him to send the second half of the email and make it short. I think he's attempted to do that. How long till Oakland regrets signing AB? Over under 2 years. I will take the under. Yeah, I can see this thing going sideways quick on AB. I will not be shocked if they cut AB after one season.
Really, just one season? You think it'll be that bad?
That guy. Something wrong with his medulla oblongata.
All right, fair enough. I think they certainly could regret it, though. I think that Oakland's kind of just waiting for that spark to go off, that first thing that goes wrong, and look out. You run away.
Time till the Jets regret signing Bell over under 1 year. That's a lot of money. He better damn sure have a good season. Year one. He's another one that, man, if that thing goes sideways on them here with Bell. I'm obviously odds are against both AB and Bell being out from their new teams in just 1 year. But how many people would be shocked if that did happen?
I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Colbert would definitely be vindicated. I think it's more likely Oakland regrets the AB trade than the Jets will regret signing Le'Veon Bell. I think that Bell isn't the disruptor that AB's been. Bell's got his whole stuff going on, but he's never been a locker room issue in the sense AB's been. Not that we're aware of.
Once again, two extremely talented players.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with Bell. I think he's going to just have a really good season.
Games started by Grimble this year. Over and under 3. He's taking the over.
Well, I mean, are we going to get real technical with this, where they break out a 2 tight end set and that counts as a start? Or
I would think not. I would think this means starting in place of Vance.
Yeah, well, you just ask me how healthy Vance is going to be, which I mean, sacrifice a goat for that one. I'll be the optimist. I've been a little pessimistic today. I'll be the optimist and say under for Grimble. He starts 1 game.
I'll go with you as well on that. Sacks by Devin Busch 5. He's taking the over.
Ooh, I had him. Well, our projection we had him for 5, so I'll say push because that's what I had him for. But yeah, they're gonna blitz him and he's gonna be effective at it. No question about it.
I will take right on the number as well too. I'll take the 5 there. He said on the last podcast you asked why Dupree has had such a difficult time developing a counter move despite his strength. He's had a lot of arm, shoulder, groin issues, haven't we all? These would naturally make it harder to change directions, re-engage the offensive line. Shorter answer is hard to counter one arm or one leg. Is he the outside linebacker version of Vance McDonald? I just wrote about Bud Dupree on Thursday here. Look, he has had those previous issues, but go back to last year. Okay, he did not miss a game, and he only missed. He was on the injury report 3 different weeks last year. It's a shame that I know this.
Mm-hmm.
Illness, knee, and pectoral for 300. Alex.
I was watching Celebrity Jeopardy the other day, the SNL version, Potent Potables. It's one of my favorite sketches.
I'll take S words. The best is the rapist for therapists.
Yeah, there's some other ones I'm going to not say on here, but with Bud, listen, he played. I think he was more hurt than that injury report led on. I think we both know that he played with a torn pec last year. Hey, he played through a torn pec. His pec was torn. He didn't miss time. The dude's tough. I mean, I have an article that I'm going to write Monday that kind of touches on this topic of the one reason for optimism with Bud Dupree. The dude's played through a ton of injuries, and it doesn't look that way because he hasn't missed as many games. But, I mean, the dude played through a torn pec 3/4 of last season, and I'm sure that affected him pretty heavily, just the way it affected Mike Hilton last year. Mike Hilton, how often did Hilton pop up on the injury report? Not that often. Missed the one game against Baltimore and then came back, but dude did not play 100%.
Bud Dupree sure knows exactly where on tape those missed sacks are from last year. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm going to try to find those for folks today. That's one of my goals, to have a post up on the sacks that Bud Dupree missed last year. So that should be interesting. Hopefully I get that in before I have to go to the doctor this afternoon here. Short answer is, look, he just don't have a counter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And at this point, it's hard to envision him becoming a premier, double-digit guy right now, plain and simple. I don't care. I mean, he's going to have to finish a lot of plays to hit 8.5 sacks or whatnot. Let's see. The trade for Busch ultimately ended up being Busch and Gentry for potentially Darnell Savage, Chase Winovich, David Long, or Mac Wilson. That's a little bit of a reach there, but I'll play along. I believe both were available in the 5th and next year's 3rd round. If you knew this would be the trade before the draft, would you still have done it? How about now?
Okay, I got lost there, to be honest.
He's saying basically the trade for Busch ultimately ended up being Busch and Gentry for potentially Darnell Savage, Chase Winovich, David Long, or Mac Wilson.
Okay,
and next year's 3rd rounder.
Yeah. I still give me Devin Busch because of the talent, but because of how badly you needed Devin Busch and a guy like him. I mean, what happens if you don't have Devin Busch this year? Someone gets hurt. You're in the same spot as you were last year, and we know that there was just no good way out of what they had last year at inside linebacker.
I don't know. Can I get if I go the opposite direction and get Savage, Winovich, and Long? Can I have Foster Moreau too?
I'm gonna make you take Mac Wilson though instead of David Long, just to make you mad about it.
No. Look, I had a love affair late with Savage. We talked a lot about Chase Winovich. I don't know if Long is ever going to amount to anything really. I mean, he I would be tempted though to take that back end of it. I would be tempted.
I like Savage, but I'm
if I can get Foster Moreau thrown in that package, and this is nothing against Devin Busch. Okay, look, I mean, we had great productive talks about Devin Busch and what he is and can provide this defense here. So fair question, I suppose. Let's see. He says he'll be in Las Vegas for a medical conference in September. Would love to take Dave and Alex if he's there to lunch. Alex probably ain't gonna be out here.
Dave, aren't you part of the medical? Aren't you an exhibit at a medical conference?
You're pretty damn close, man. I got another doctor's appointment today. I got another doctor's appointment next Friday. Doctor. It's a wonder I'm still alive right now here. Brett, shoot me a DM on Twitter closer to the date there. All right, we got that one down. Let's try to knock out a couple others here. Jay Barbardi writes in from Mason Rudolph. What exactly do Yens want to see Rudolph in in preseason ball? Production, timing. Personally, I'm not looking at numbers, but poise in the pocket, command, the huddle, a little bit rattled as a rookie there. The answer to your question is yes.
Agreed.
I mean, you want to see a huge noticeable jump all the way around. Look, he was not totally awful last year during the preseason there, but you want to see him do more. I mean, you want him to look like a backup quarterback, whatever you want to phrase that as being.
Yeah, you're right that he was not totally awful, but that's not the bar needed to be the backup.
Sure.
One play away from Ben. But to be a little more specific, you want to see the consistency, especially in the short intermediate stuff. You don't want to miss on any plays that you should make in the easy stuff. I think the poise was actually okay last year. I was kind of impressed by the way he commanded things. So I think obviously you want to see that continue and improve, but I think he was in a better place there last year and just take care of the football. Too many turnovers in training camp in the preseason. A little bit of that is timing and rhythm and stuff like that. But make a profit, no turnovers, be consistent. That's his path.
He's got to have better processing, which he should.
Yeah, and he will.
He should.
Yep.
He got to know when to get rid of the foot. He got to know when that football's got to come out.
Yeah, he knows his lack of mobility is going to hurt him. Ball's going to get out on time. He's got to know where his checkdown's at. He's got to know what the coverage is. But no turnovers, can be consistent, and he can win the backup job.
I'd like his moxie. I said he's got a little bit of asshole in him, and I like it. I do. He talked. And nothing should be read into what he said yesterday. Even though I posted a quote on Twitter with a funny animated GIF along with it. He says he's a competitor and all. He says he don't care if he's back. He's playing the trash can game with and competing against Ben to throw the footballs in the buckets there, and he makes sure to point out, I think I beat Ben. And that I like that. And look, if this guy falls flat on his face, okay, so be it, whatever. But I'm still not disappointed with the pick. I really am not. And I'm a little bit more optimistic about what to see out of him, this training camp and the preseason. I'll be curled up in a corner if he doesn't win the number 2 spot.
Yeah, you and a lot of people. How about just to go on this tangent real quick, because you mentioned it. I think you were the first person I saw that mentioned it, but not the only one. Baker Mayfield's comment about Duke Johnson. Imagine if Ben talked about Jalen Samuels and wasn't traded or something, and Baker was like, whatever, don't care, he's self-inflicted. Imagine if Ben said that, the media would explode.
Yeah, Didi would have had a field day with that. Instead, she kind of apologized for him, it seemed like. Everybody seemed to. I saw it for Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd does not like Baker Mayfield. Look, I think Baker is a fine quarterback. I just think we've heard, how many times have we heard Ben asked about second-year quarterbacks, who had coming off a good rookie season. He says, let's see, come talk to me after their second season. So, look, there's some tape on Baker and Mayfield now. If he passes the test this year, has this Browns team at 10-6 and in the playoffs, then okay. But I think I would have dialed it. And it's not his MO to do that either. He's a cocky dude as well.
Yeah.
So
I like Baker. I'm not saying I don't like Baker. I like him on the field, I like him off the field. I'm just saying there's a hypocrisy and a perception. Everyone loves Baker. No one likes Ben. But if Baker says it, it's wow, what a leader. Ben would have said that it's what a terrible leader. It's funny how that works.
It is fun to see all the questions come out about them right now.
Sure.
It is fun to see the shoe on the other foot right now with them. All right, from Tony Verdream. He spelled it phonetically for me. Thank you, Tony. Dave, let's see. Hey, guys, 2 quick questions. Second favorite topic on the Terrible Podcast is the cap. He wants to point out that his favorite topic is Alex talking about pattern matching.
Hey, all right.
Maybe
You're the first
Alex,
person to ever say that.
Maybe Alex will have a little bit more of that over the next 5 weeks. Maybe Alex will have a lot more of that over the next 5 weeks here. About the cap, he says the NFLPEA site currently has the Steelers listed as having just under $1 million in available cap space. He says he believes roster bonuses against the cap for the year count, which they are paid. So does that $984,000 already account for the potential roster bonuses due to Artie Burns and Chris Boswell? The answer is yes. Those are already accounted in. To the best of my knowledge, and I believe that to be correct, already in where their current cap situation is. So that should answer that for you. Number 2, he says he assumes undrafted free agent signing bonuses count against the current year's cap. They do, whether they make the team or not. Correct. Now you got to remember you're past June 1st now, so any player who has stretched out signing bonuses past this year, you take whatever was already due this year, that counts against the cap, and then whatever's left over goes on 2020's number as dead money. He continues on. If so, considering how close to the cap they always are and how they likely to have a small cushion, I wonder if that's another reason the Steelers haven't given higher UDFA signing bonuses. FYI, New England is currently $4.181 million under the cap. You can't take one team and compare it to where they are in cap space overall because of just different variables involved here. Here's the thing with undrafted free agent and signing bonuses. There is a rookie pool, so to speak, of $110,000 this year of what you can pay your in signing bonuses total for all undrafted rookie free agents. So, and on top of that, look, if the player's outside the rule of 51 right now, only his signing bonus amount for this season counts against the cap. So, the Steelers, the last three guys that the Steelers signed after the tryouts were, care to name those guys off quickly for me?
All the tryout guys that got signed?
No, the three tryout guys, the undrafted free agents. They had the quarterback. They had.
Well, they signed 5 tryout guys. Yeah, there was Devlin Hodges, Damian Prince.
I'm talking the rookies. The rookies.
Oh, the rookies. Devlin Hodges, Damian Prince, and it was Gilmore Mondo. Those weren't rookies. Kozora Skipper.
All right, those 3 guys each received $1,000 signing bonuses there.
Big money.
So $333 of that counts against the cap. So I mean, in plain and short, I mean, if you I guess what I'm getting at here is don't use the signing bonus amounts in the cap as an excuse. I think Alex's theory more along the lines that they should just guarantee more of the rookie base salary as a reason to try to attract some of these guys.
I like how much this story still gets talked about that I wrote about like 2 months ago. That we're still talking about the UDFA stuff. So I'm just happy to keep that conversation going.
Yeah, but there's like 6 of us.
Well, I didn't say it was a big club. I just know it's a club. It's a club of a couple.
Yeah, look, you know me, I'll talk about the cap. In fact, I just got over, thank goodness, the NFLPA been driving me crazy. Had 93 players under contract for the Steelers when they only had 92, and that's been going on since the 25th of May. I don't know why I stress and stuff like that bothers me, but it does. But thankfully that got corrected yesterday there. So all's right in my world. Ted Webb writes in, we all know when this says Alex's must have at training camp. What's the plural of Alex? Is it Alex's?
I've never had to pluralize my name before, so I don't know. Alex is, yeah.
Or possessive. No, possessive. Alex's.
Yeah.
Must have at training camp from Ted Webb. We all know when players show up to camp, they bring their own personal mattresses, video game systems, etc. Besides the paper and pencil that's used for note taking, what else? Make sure you include what's the special type paper that you use?
Write in the Rain. It's a military surplus thing. I don't forget exactly, but so you can. It's pen and notepad that allows you to write if it rains outside. It doesn't. The ink doesn't smear.
So Ted, it's not just paper and pencil, all right?
Yeah. I'll bring a regular notebook for dry days and my rain notebook for any days that might have rain coming in.
What else is a must for you at training camp?
Not really. I mean, is he asking what I take to training camp or like must see?
What possessions? Yeah.
The notebook, the pens, binoculars. That always comes in handy. Bottle of water. I mean, like a snack. That's about it. Travel light. And the McLumina pushing her.
He says, also always wondered, how do you take notes in the rain with pencil and pen and paper? Hey, just answer that. He has top secret military grade.
I'm the James Bond of Steelers training camp, Dave.
Ted, he does not. He has to turn that in on a requisition form for Steelers Depot as well too. Let's see. Oh boy, this is a big one from Robert Newen. Too long to read there. Sorry, Robert.
Next time.
Christian Perry, what type of contract do you see Mason Rudolph getting once his is up? Boy, come talk to me in a couple more years, Christian. It's way too early. Way too early. It depends on Ben. It depends on how Mason plays. Way too early. I mean, do you extend? Is it going to be a situation where you're extending, or at least trying to extend Mason a year out? Are you going to wait? Are you going to wait until maybe you have to franchise tag him? You know, probably you would think it wouldn't come to that. Are you going to lose them altogether? Way too early for me to trouble my tiny little brain for that, Christian. It's just too far out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about Mason Rudolph never making a start. He could be a starter for a year. Who knows? So couldn't tell you that.
Tony Hull writes in, this is really something we've already talked about. Wanted to get your thoughts on the snap counts for quarterbacks this preseason. I really hope that they give Mason Rudolph the Landry Jones treatment this year and give him 70% of the snaps. I don't think it'll be that high because make no mistake about it, you still got to give Joshua Dobbs a chance to lose the job. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, he has the job now. Yeah, I guess lose it. That's fair.
I think you try to give him 50-50, as close to 50-50 as you can. He goes on to write, I have a feeling that the Steelers will make it a true battle and give him and Dobbs equal opportunity, but I'd like to see more of Rudolph since he's year 2 versus year 3. I'd also like to see Ben get 0 snaps in the preseason, but we all know that won't happen. Yeah, Alex and I covered a little bit of that, Tony, a little bit earlier in the show there, so hopefully that steered you in the at least give you an idea of the direction that we're talking about right now. Bryce writes in, hey guys, this is Bryce. Love the show. I got 2 questions for you guys. Now that Edmonds is a year older and Sean Davis is more experienced, in what ways do you believe this defense will improve in disguising coverages so they can be at least less predictable? Number 2, looking at the Steelers roster as it stands right now, if the draft was next week, what position would you target and in what order? 7 rounds. He says he would go at outside linebacker, tight end, cornerback, defensive end, inside linebacker, specialist, kicker, or punter. I think you pretty much nailed it. Maybe offensive or outside linebacker, tight end, and safety. Maybe safety ahead of tight end, depending on what happens here this year with Gentry and McDonald. But yeah, an edge rusher probably going to be at the top of that list. And Alex, you want to answer that first question?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what we talked about earlier. Go look at that Patriots game if you're able to, especially if you have NFL Game Pass or just can watch it on TV or wherever, and just see kind of the way they disguise the coverages and really confuse Tom Brady. And that's how you beat Tom Brady. Everyone thinks you got to pressure him and you got to hit him, and yes, that's true. I say that about any single quarterback. But how do you do that? That's what I'm more interested in. How do you pressure? How do you hit Tom Brady? You confuse him. You force him to read the play. You change the coverage. You give the pre-snap look different than what the post-snap look ends up being. So I think definitely, with Edmonds going into his second year and having more comfort and trust and really being fully assimilated into that defense, that you're going to be able to hold your coverages and disguises a lot more and a lot better. So that should certainly help improve the pass rush and help improve the defense creating some takeaways.
All right, we'll try to get to a few more of these other ones here on Tuesday. We're of course about that 90-minute mark here on the show there. Anything else to add, Alex, before we get out of here?
Nope. McLuma is getting inspected sometime in the near future, and pray for her. She's her tailpipe's fallen off, so we already know that's going to need to get fixed. And let's do a rain dance, and nothing else is wrong with her.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex Kozora on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what Alex and I do and you want to donate to the podcast cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you want a year's free, ad-free experience on SteelersDepot.com for $25, you can do so by going to SteelersDepot.com and hitting the ad-free button up top there. And until Tuesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.